Guys, fellas, fellow players, we have a problem. We have a bit of a problem with the season of Discovery. I went into this with an open mind, and I understand that experimentation is part of this new idea for Classic Plus. They call it Season of Discovery, but let's be honest, it's gonna be Classic Plus. Okay, so reading up on the runes, which are going to be the new abilities that the classes get, we kind of instantly hit a roadblock here. And the reason we're starting with Druid is because, well, that's where the first roadblock is. See, the Druid is getting a particular ability which is problematic, to say the least. Okay, we're not gonna go through all of the runes here, just the ones I personally find a little bit, well, interesting, let's say. Because I am a Shaman player. I have been playing Shaman for many years, and even after I found out they were absolutely unviable in Classic, I still enjoy playing them in Classic. Okay, there are of course different opinions on all this, but yeah, let's just go into it. Okay, so there's a lot of interesting runes, but the one I want to point out, which is a big problem, is this one, Wild Strikes. As you can see here, it's literally Wind Fury for Druid, and it comes in aura format, which means they don't even have to plonk down a totem to use it. Their whole party benefits from it, and it works exactly like Wind Fury. So what's the problem with this? Okay, number one, this is a Shaman class defining ability. You can't just give that copy 1-to-1 and then give it to Druid. First of all, that's not cool. That's lame. Okay, give Druid something else. And I'm really trying not to like get a rouse out of myself here, because this is actually quite infuriating to me. Well, the problem is mainly that this essentially gives the Alliance faction access to Wind Fury, and this is a pretty big deal, because in contrast, like I have read all the runes here, and the Horde gets nothing similar in that caliber of a trade-off, if you will. They don't get something like, say, Blessing of Kings or Blessing of Salvation. They don't get anything along those lines. The other runes here, I mean, Wild Growth, one other, Life Bloom, I think that's a little problematic too, just because I personally hate that spell, because it's a shield for purging. So if you want to dispel or purge a target, Life Bloom is like a big no-no buff that's on the player. That's just me personally. I don't like it. I bet the Druid players out there really love it, but well, I hate it to say the least. But this is essentially what I wanted to point out with the Druid runes. A lot of them are, you know, it is what it is. I don't really mind them. Some of them are even interesting. Like the Fury of Storm Rage here. It's quite an interesting rune they get there. But none of these runes are as problematic as this one. Where is it again? Wild Strikes. This one, I can't believe that this one left the drawing board. This should have never even hit the beta stage, not even the alpha stage of this game, let alone actually get into the game. Remember, we're going off of this based on the idea that this is legit information, like all of it, right? So assuming this is actually real, I'm not happy. Not only is it a better version of the Wind Fury totem, but it comes free of charge. You don't even have to use mana to cast it, and it's just on you permanently in an aura around you. That's exactly what happened to like with Shamans and Death Knight back in retail Wrath of the Lich King. Because what happened back then is that they took the agility totem and the strength totem, and they just made it a shout the Horn of Winter for Death Knight. So not only did they take Shaman's ability back then and give it to Death Knight, but they gave a better version of those spells to Death Knight. I think that's unacceptable, just me personally. Okay, so let's get into the next problem. See, Paladins are getting some insane buffs through their runes here. They're getting Divine Storm, Seal of Martyrdom, which are both Cleave's AoE abilities. They get Crusader Strike, Beacon of Light, Divine Sacrifice, and these all do exactly as you think they do. They work exactly like they do in TBC and Wrath of the Lich King. As you can see, like, you feel free to go in and like read up on them on your own. I'm not gonna read through all of them, but remember what we just talked about. Here is that very same problem. The Paladin blows the Horn of Lordaeron, which increases your total strength and agility of all your party members within 30 yards by number. It lasts 2 minutes, and it says here it's exclusive with Blessing of Might, which I take to mean that you cannot have both on at once. Blizzard, what gives? What gives? You're giving a Shaman ability, 2 of them in fact. You're combining those 2 totems and giving them to Paladin as a shout, essentially a battle shout version of it. What's the trend of thought here? This is unacceptable. You don't just do that. Like, what the hell, man? You take both strength and agility and you combine it and you make it a shout, which is not even a totem. You can just, it's basically an aura. And you give it to the Alliance. What gives? Okay, so here's another one. Inspiration Exemplar. I don't know if that's spelled correctly, but your inspiring presence periodically dispels fear and sleep effects on nearby party members. Okay, so Paladins essentially just become walking tremor totems. You don't think that's a little bit extreme? Like, what will this mean in PvP? Fear and sleep is essentially useless in PvP now. Again, I think this is completely unacceptable and way above what can be considered fair and reasonable. Like, this is overpowered. There's a lot of these runes for Paladin that are overpowered, but I take big issue with the ones that are straight up stripped from a different class, from the other faction, and given to Paladin as a sort of, I don't know, like a kick in the nuts. I think this is incredibly ridiculous. And then you go into Shaman runes, right? Some of these are pretty neat. Healing Rain, for example, pretty neat. Lava Burst, yeah, cool. Elemental. And then there's some tanking abilities. Shield Mastery, Shamanistic Rage, great. It's always nice to get a mana regeneration mechanic for Shaman. This is something they have been lacking for many years in both vanilla and, well, essentially they got Shamanistic Rage in TBC, but in the vanilla version of the game, mana was always an issue for Shamans. And this right here is another problem. This is more personal for me, but I don't know how many of you out there feel the same way I do, but when I play Enhancement Shaman, I'm not looking to dual wield. If I wanted to dual wield, I would play Warrior or Rogue, alright? I want to use a big fat two-hander and see big Wind Fury crits. This is the opposite of that. Because when this happened in TBC and Wrath of the Lich King, this made two-handers unviable. Because if you weren't dual wielding, you weren't doing it right. I personally don't like that. That's just me. So I'm quite sad to see Shamans again being labeled with the dual wield spec for their DPS. I don't get why we can't just use two-handers. We don't even get a cleave. We get like what is it, like Molten Blast, but that's a tanking ability. It's like Cone of Cold but fire based, and it's a tanking ability. You can clearly see here, ability generates a high amount of threat. Okay, cool. It allows us to AoE tank a bit better. That's pretty neat. But where's the big damage ability? Like, where is the Divine Storm for Shaman? Why can't we have, like, I don't know, the equal of a Warrior's Whirlwind, but with wind damage or something? Maybe have it proc like a guaranteed Wind Fury proc after you use it or something. Something cool like that. And maybe have it exclusive to two-handers. That way you would have to decide whether you want to dual wield or use two-handers. Because Lavalash obviously cannot be used with a two-hander. That's another problem that dual wielding represents. Because you can't use it if you you can't use his ability if you want to use a two-hander. So that's a problem. Water Shield, yeah, we know exactly what that does. It's not really that interesting. And here's Earth Shield. But it's a reduced form of Earth Shield. It does everything a normal Earth Shield does, right? But it has 3 charges. And there's no way currently, as far as I can tell, to increase these charges. Because in the other versions of the game, like in TBC, the Earth Shield has 9 charges. So effectively you would have to reapply this Earth Shield over and over again. It is a cool way to heal yourself as a DPS, I guess, because it's a leg rune, so... But then again, you would probably want Shamanistic Rage if you're playing Enhancement, for example, right? Here's another problem. They're making you choose between Way of Earth, which is the Shaman tanking rune, and Shamanistic Rage, and Earth Shield. So, this is very clever, by the way, because it means you can't have 2 of each. You have to, like, decide which one of these you want, and then you can pair it up with something like Molten Blast and Water Shield. Maybe Shield Mastery. You can also, I guess you could choose Shield Mastery and then forego Way of Earth and then pick Shamanistic. I haven't really gotten a chance to experiment with these, so I don't know what the proper setup would be, thinking from a DPS Shaman perspective. But I know one thing for sure. Two-handers are once again gonna be left in the dust. All my abilities are gonna be given to the opposite faction, and to Paladin at that, and Druid. Which, by the way, last I checked, Druids didn't even use weapons, so, like, them getting Wind Fury is kind of ironic. Like, it requires a weapon to actually proc the effect, so they can just proc it unarmed, I guess now. That's pretty neat, I guess. So, as a bit of a side complaint here, we have the Warlock runes, which are, well, downright crazy, if I do say so myself. Like, you could just take a look at some of these, and, like, transform into a demon, increase armor by 500%, reducing your chance to be crit, mana gain from life tap, just all this cool, and it changes their entire toolkit into like a very cool setup, like a very cool play style. And you know, that's fine with me. I just wish we could have, you know, a little bit of, I don't know, I hesitate to use the word balance, right? Because I know this is supposed to be classic, and if everyone is super, then no one is super. But out of all these classes here, Warlock is definitely the one who are getting the long end of the stick, whereas Shaman is clearly getting the short end of the stick. Mage healers, we all know about that. They can do like chrono healing, time-based. They also get some annoying abilities like Ice Lance. It's quite, you know, it's already hard to catch mages in Classic, and now they can essentially kite even better. Icy Veins, yeah, Regeneration, which is exactly what it does, heals the target and applies Temporal Beacon. The Temporal Beacon is essentially like a heal that it heals your target, the beacon target, for all the damage you do. So it's gonna be this fun mix of mage DPSing and healing at the same time, it looks like to me. I don't really have a problem with that. But look at this, right? Enlightenment. You deal 10% more damage while you have more than 70% mana, while below 30% 10% of your mana regeneration continues while casting. This is a good example of a well-designed, not too overpowered, not too underpowered ability. It's just too bad that it's overshadowed by some of these others, like regeneration, right? Why would you ever take enlightenment over regeneration? Because these are both chest runes. So it's kind of redundant, you see. Because, hands down, this is just better. I like the idea that you can choose and pick and choose whatever you want, but we all know there's inevitably going to be a meta. And, well, this one right here is not going to be part of the meta. This I think everyone can see. This one I don't understand quite well. Increase your spell critical strike chance with all spells by 15%, but your non-periodic spell critical strikes now have an additional mana cost of 1% of your mana. Okay, I do understand it then. I must have misread it earlier. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. But non-periodic spells. Do mage have any periodic spells? Does fireball count? I don't know. Interesting. Okay, so that was just a quick glimpse at mage, right? I did say we wouldn't go through all of these. One other one has quite chimera shot. Where is it? Look, you have Scorpion Sting on your target. You can now disarm them at range for 10 seconds. What the hell, Blizzard, man? Like, really? Disarm effects pretty much kill certain classes. A warrior, for example, if they get disarmed, they're flat out dead. You're giving this to a hunter. I don't know how often this chimera shot will be up, because it doesn't say what the cooldown is. But if it's something you can spam, then it's not gonna be very fun to be a melee class. That I can tell you for sure. And then you see, like, Viper Sting. This will apply an effect depending on the sting you're using, right? Serpent Sting, like, this one is pretty baseline. But Viper Sting instantly restores mana to you equal to 60% of the total amount you have drained. If this is not like insult to injury, like some classes does not function without their mana. So if they face a hunter and they get Viper Stinged, they're done. But now they're Omega done, because the hunter will straight up get the mana that he drains from them. So you can't even like counter drain the hunter, because he can just keep draining your mana and gain that for himself while he's draining your mana. That seems a bit redonkulous, excuse me, but like some of these sniper training, your shot abilities gain 30% increased critical strike chance while you have not moved for the last 6 seconds. Okay, so you're essentially getting 30% crit for not moving for 6 seconds. That is insane, okay? That is insane. I don't know what is going through their head. I don't know what they're smoking. But this is another example of like a rune that should have never left the drawing board. This is overpowered, because this is increased chance. This is not 30% total. This will be added on to what you already have for critical chance. This means like hunters can reach like upwards of 50% crit chance. They will literally be critting on every shot. Almost every shot, not literally every shot, because it is 50% after all. But every second shot, okay? The lone wolf talent, that is what some hunters have requested for a long time. You sacrifice your pet. Well, you don't actually sacrifice it. You just get a buff if you don't have one out. So that gives you a melee spec, I guess, which in combination with some of these other, well, most of these are shots, carve, a sweeping attack that strikes all enemies in front of you. So essentially a cleave. So even hunter gets a cleave, but shaman, nah, doesn't get a cleave. Gets Lavalash. Piss off, shaman. You're worthless. Back to meme spec status with you. Warrior also sort of gets short-handed here. Some of these abilities are pretty neat, but it's nothing close to being as cool as what like paladin and druids and mages get. Flagellation. Gain a 25% bonus to physical damage for 12 seconds after activating Blood Rage or Berserker Rage. What's the flagellation part? Do you know what this word means? This would mean that you are flagellating yourself, like as in you're hitting yourself to gain something out of it. This ability right here, if this was actually flagellation, it would cause some damage to yourself, and then you would gain like this buff of 25% bonus to physical damage. But that's not how it works. You take no damage. It's just named this for no reason. I don't know. Maybe there's just a placeholder name. Warbringer is probably the most interesting thing that they get overall. It just allows them to charge, intercept, and intervene in combat and in all stances. Pretty baseline, everyone knows what that does, but still, it's very effective. It's very nice to have a gap closer in combat. Frenzied Assault, see, warriors get two-handed love. Not Shaman though. Again, Shaman, you can piss off, no one likes you. All in all, fellas, I'm kind of sad to see what these runes actually do. I hope this is very much work in progress, and that they're gonna change their mind on some of these, particularly Paladin and Druid runes. I think that's way over the top. There's no justification for just taking Shaman's toolkit and giving it to the Alliance. Horde doesn't get anything in return, by the way. I don't know if I've said this already, but Horde doesn't get anything. We don't get blessings. We don't get what's it called, like Hand of Justice, like the stun. Is that what it's called? Judgment, Hammer of Judgment, I think, right? Yeah. Nothing along those lines. We don't get any auras. Nothing. Just this is a one-sided deal. This is like, hey, let me trade you this piece of dog shit, and in return, I'll take your house. That's what's going on here. And anyone who thinks otherwise is a fool. Like, this is downright ridiculous. It's a one-sided trade, and it's clearly biased from the perspective of the Alliance. Like, I know this faction war thing, but this is part of Classic, though. This is part of Vanilla. There's supposed to be faction differences. There's supposed to be a faction war, and I know it's kind of cringe to come off as like, oh, Horde player mad, Alliance player mad, I know, okay, but let's just try to be a little bit objective here. This is not okay. I don't like it, and they need to change this before they should. This have no right to hit live servers on the 30th. You can see here it's the 8th, so they have like 20 days. They have 20 days to remedy this issue, and unfortunately I don't think they will in time. So I guess, speaking as a Horde player, the only hope that I have is that down the line they'll give Shamans something even cooler than what Druids and Paladins are getting. But at that point it will be too late, because everyone will have rolled Alliance. Like, why would you roll Horde when Alliance gets literally all the things that Shaman provide? A better version of those things, in fact. Like, Tremor Totem, Aura, are you kidding me? Bro, come on. Please try to be reasonable here. I don't know how to end this video, but, yeah. I'm not happy.